Hello, everybody. My name is James Spears, and for my tool assessment and demonstration, I will be looking at Omeka. So, what is Omeka? To put it shortly, Omeka is an open source content management system and web hosting platform for digital content and collections. It allows you to create, both private and public facing digital collections, digital archives, things of that nature, and it is supported by the Omeka project. Omeka is a free to use software with the correct supporting software and technical know-how. So who's Omeka for? It's really for anybody with digital content or a digital collection that they're interested in organizing, describing, presenting, making accessible, or sharing online. This could be individuals, enthusiasts, small organizations, or even large institutions. And the majority of the user base are individuals or groups in libraries, museums, and archives. Since there's such a wide user base for Omeka, there are many versions of Omeka that, cater to different use cases and needs. And these are Omeka Classic, Omeka S, and Omeka.net. Omeka Classic is the basic version, launched in 2008. It's limited to one site, and it must be self-hosted or hosted by a third party. It is free to download and install with the correct software, but you do have to have the technical know-how to install it on a machine. This is really good, like I said, for individuals, small institutions, small groups who only need one site and also have the technical know-how to install it. There also is Omeka S, which is the institutional version of Omeka Classic. It's aimed at larger institutions and groups within those institutions like university libraries, archives, and special collections. It allows institutions to host multiple Omeka sites and provides a single administrative interface where you can administer, how your sites look, the functionality, the plugins, things of that nature. It's also self-hosted or third-party hosted, and you would need to download and install the correct software to install Omeka S as well. Lastly, there is Omeka.net, which is the hosted version of Omeka Classic. It's very similar to the difference between WordPress.org and WordPress.com, if you're familiar with those services. This is first-party hosted by the Omeka project, and it is a paid solution based on the storage and your plugin needs. You will pay different price points. There also is an indefinite free trial period available, which is limited just to the number of plugins that you can install. This demonstration will focus mainly on Omeka Classic. I installed Omeka Classic locally using Windows Subsystem for Linux 2. But most things that we cover will be applicable to Omeka.net, since I won't be going into the actual installation and self-hosting of Omeka Classic. Anyone interested in viewing my installation experience, I have posted a guide on my GitHub. The link is below. You can visit there, read that. And I've also linked some resources that were helpful to me. Just kind of a brief note, I thought the installation process was fairly straightforward. It's not so super difficult, so if you have the capability, there are other resources available that would allow you to get this up and running. So before we jump into the actual demonstration, there are a few key terms that we should go over. Those are item, collections, exhibits, plugins, and users. Items are the base content container for Omeka. These are, digital records of an item, could be physical or digital items, and they will contain the metadata, the subject tags, and any relevant files for your digital representation. There are collections, which is a set of related items that can be displayed and searched together. You add items to collections when you upload them to your Omeka site. There also are exhibits, which are just curated collections of items. They are structured and presented with a narrative, interpretation, or some other kind of value-adding information. Plugins, which are just additional code that adds functionality to Omeka. Many of the plugins are produced by the Omeka project staff, but there are also many community plugins. If you're interested in looking at those plugins, the link to the main plugin site is on the screen. And we have users. Users are other people who have access to the site. Each Omeka site has at least one user, and that would be your super user. But you also have different varying levels of users with different levels of access and permissions. Those are the super user, the admins, researchers, and contributors. So, what are the benefits of Omeka Classic? In my experience setting it up, adding items, using collections, that kind of stuff, I was able to kind of notice 5 benefits I think were really stood out. Those were the ease with which it was, simple and easy to create metadata. Omeka uses the Dublin Core metadata standards, and they link you on every page pretty much to the Dublin Core documentation. Which you can, of course, is fairly easy to find online, but it's very nice that they provide you a link directly to it, because it makes it very easy to follow the best practices, and make sure that your metadata is consistent across your site, and also consistent with Dublin Core standards and practices. You also have the ability to create standard item type metadata, so that when you're working with other people, you can make sure that your item types are consistent and you have the same metadata for different types of items across the site. Omeka is extensible, meaning there are many plugins that add additional functionality, which is very useful if you're interested in using Omeka for different cases, or if you want to work with other people and approve contributions before they go live. It's a very useful feature and allows you to kind of tailor Omeka to the needs of your project or group. Omeka is also flexible, both in how you use it and how it looks. So on the public side, there are themes you can install. You can customize an application so that you can decide what your public site looks like. It's also flexible in the sense that you can use it for what you're interested in. So if you wanted it to be a digital history project, a site for your digital history project, or a site for your digital humanities project, you could do that through exhibits. If you're interested in setting up a repository for digital data sets or documents, that's also something you do. Or if you're interested in setting up a archive for digitized images or digitized documents, it's also something you could do. So it's flexible. It is a solution for many use cases, and that makes it a very beneficial and very advantageous software for many different types of users. Customizable, again, you can change the appearance, the plugins, you can upload different types of documents to it. It doesn't just have to be text or image based. It can be audio, it could be software, it could be structured data sets, anything like that. And lastly, it is collaborative. So like I said, you have different types of users, and you can add as many users to the site as you want, and they can perform different roles. So you can have contributors and researchers and admins, and then your super user. So it allows you to work together with different people in your group, or if you need to invite researchers in to use your data, you can authenticate those researchers while they're using your information and using your content. There are some drawbacks, and one of the biggest drawbacks of Omeka Classic is the fact that it does require some technical know-how to get it up and running. It's free, which is always a plus, especially when you're trying to work on maybe some of these smaller projects that don't have a budget or don't have as big of a budget, but it does require some technical use to get up and running if you're interested in self-hosting. Not only does it require technical knowledge, it also requires a capability. So you would need a server you can host it on. You would need to be able to forward your server to the actual internet so people can access you. It is nice that there's Omeka.net, which is an alternative solution. However, again, if you're one of those smaller groups or an individual who maybe has a smaller budget, this is a paid solution, so that is something you do have to consider. Like I mentioned before, there is a free trial period, which is of indefinite length. The only restriction is the number of plugins you can install. So if you're a smaller organization, a smaller group, or an individual who doesn't need a ton of plugins and extra functionality, that is a solution that would work fairly well for you in the long term. Okay, so we are now going to jump into the site that I have set up and walk through our demonstration of a live Omeka installation. Okay, so jumping into the Omeka site that we have set up, we can see this is what users will see when they visit your public site. I just have this running from my local IP address, but you can have this set up to be accessible from a URL that you own. You can set the site up to pretty much be named whatever you're interested in, or whatever your collection is. So we see there are a few things we can kind of draw our attention to looking at this site. The first being items. So here we can browse all items and we can see these are all the items that have been uploaded to the Omeka site. So we see we have 6 total public items. East Tennessee and the Civil War, Julie's A. Wayland, Are You Breaking the Law, so on and so forth. These are those representations of either digital items, so these being digital text documents, or physical items, these being physical World War I poster prints. If we view one of these items, so we can see East Tennessee and the Civil War, we can see the metadata about this topic. We can see title, subject, description, creator, and this was all created by me when I uploaded it to the Omeka site. Pulling our attention down here, we see relevant files, we see the collection it belongs to, and we see what subject tags it has been tagged with. We also see Omeka provides a citation that any users who would like to use this can use in their research. Going back to the home page, we also can browse all collections. So we see here we have 2 collections. We have Spears Research Paper Collection, which is just undergraduate research essays that I have written. And we have this collection right here, which is free to use and reuse World War I posters from the Library of Congress. These are both collections of items. So if we click on free to use and reuse World War I posters, we see there is metadata associated with the collection as well, like a title, subject, description, so on and so forth. And then we can also view all items in this collection. So that's nice. So you can group different items together based on theme, contributor, creator, year, geographic, whatever you want to do. You can group these together as you see fit. Going back, we also can browse exhibits. So here we see a mock exhibit that I put together, World War I posters. And this is very nice because it's structured, so we can see the homepage right here with a brief description of what this exhibit is, and then the structure of the exhibit to the right. So we can start with page 1, and this is pretty much what you can see. So this is an item that is on the Omeka page. If we click this, it will link us to the item in Omeka. We can also go back to the exhibit and we see a narrative piece of, body of text that I have written next to it. So this is a good example of how you can use items that are already in your Omeka page, set up an exhibit, and then add interpretation, narrative, some kind of value to those items. We can proceed through the rest of it. So we see we have another one, and then our last page for it right here, some more examples. And like I said, these are all linked, so you can click on these and view the actual items, view the metadata, the citation, all things like that. Heading back to the home page, last but not least, we also can see the about page. So since this is a public facing page, you may want to give your users, your visitors, some information about your project, your organization, what you're doing. So that's something you can do here. One thing that's very nice about the public facing site is that everything is connected, everything's linked. So of course, you can feature items on the front, things that are very interesting, things that are new that you think users might be interested in. Users also can search the site. So if I was interested in, Canada, for example, I could search Canada. And it'll show me everything that have a subject tag or any kind of keyword for Canada. So I can click this and view it, and now I'm back to this item. I also could scroll down here to the subject tags, and I can click on any of these tags and it'll link me to other resources that have the same tags as well. So it's a nice way for users to explore items on your Omeka site in various collections, in their own way and how they see fit. So that's the public facing side of Omeka. Of course, it's fairly straightforward. You can use this in a variety of ways. Like I said, of course, it could be just an exhibit space for like a digital humanities project, digital history project. It could be a public interface for a repository or an archive. But where things really start to get interesting is when we flip over to the admin dashboard. So here's the admin dashboard. I haven't logged in yet, but if I log in as admin, Now I can see where I have really control over the Omeka page. So looking up the dashboard, the first thing we see up here in the corner is our menu of things we can use. We also see a quick little overview right here of the number of items, collections we have, tags, so on and so forth. Clicking here with plugins, we can see this is where you really start to see the extensible and flexibility of Omeka. So we can see I've got several different extensions, several different plugins installed here. The ones being most useful being Exhibit Builder, PDF Embed, Simple Pages, Doc Viewer, things that allow you to like build exhibits. This one, for example, is very useful. It helps auto-suggest Library of Congress name authorities for you and subject headings for you. This allows you to embed PDFs into pages so you can view PDFs. This one allows you to make simple pages like the About page. So you know, different plugins that kind of add different functionality and very useful depending on what you might be interested in doing. We can also click the appearance up here, and this is where we see kind of the flexibility for the public site. So if I were to, you know, use any one of these themes down here, or I could download more themes from the Omeka directory, I could change what my public site looks like. So this is the theme I'm currently using, Berlin, but if I wanted to, I could use Minimalist theme, Seasons theme, or the Thanks Roy theme. So this kind of shows some of the customizations available and some of the flexibilities between the appearance and the plugins. We also have the option to customize the navigation menu and some of the other settings for your site. So when it comes to adding items, adding collections, you can do that over here. So we'll start with items. We can see if we click this, it shows us all the items that are in our Omeka page. You see here we have 9, which is more than we have on the public site because 3 of them are actually private. If you're interested in adding an item, you can just click add item, and then you can fill out the Delta core. You can add the item type metadata, add the relevant files, add the tags, and then you can either make it public, feature it, and then select a collection for it to go in. And then the same thing with collections. So you can see we have 3 collections here. You can add a collection and then make it public, feature it, that kind of stuff. We can see it's very useful. They provide you a link to the Dublin Core documentation so you can follow the best practices. If you're not familiar with Dublin Core, that's very useful. I know I am not an expert, but I was certainly able to visit this link and just follow the recommendations that they made for us. We also can see we visit down here, visit the exhibits page. So this is where you would build your exhibits. So we see here, if I edit the World War I exhibits that we viewed on the front, I can see the title. This is all the metadata for the exhibit, the title, the description, the current theme, and then here are the different pages. So I can click on a page, edit the page right here. So fairly simple. This of course is a plugin, but once you get it up and running, that would be a really good option if you're interested in taking the items that you have added to your Omeka page, adding a little bit of interpretation to them, and then structuring them for your visitors to view. And the last thing I'm interested in showing off from the dashboard is actually these users right here. So, of course, earlier in the presentation, I mentioned the ability to add different users with different roles and permissions. And we see here I've added 3 users to the Omeka page. We have admin, contributor, and researcher. And these have different permissions and different roles. So our admin is our super user, which essentially is the top user. They have all permissions. They can do anything to the site. We have contributors, which are just like they sound, are people who can contribute to the site, but they cannot make any changes to the appearance, to the site setting, things like that. And lastly, we have researchers who can view the items on the site from the Omeka dashboard, but they cannot contribute to the site. This is very useful because it allows you the opportunity and the chance to control a little bit better, who has access to the site, know who's using your site. So a good example I have set up, if we go view our collections, we see we have 3 collections here instead of 2, like we had on the public site. And that is because this collection here, 538 datasets, I have made private. These are just different datasets published by the investigative publication 538, which has been made public via their GitHub. And what I've done here is I made them private, because what you could do is have, researchers register to access these data sets if you needed that level of identification, or you needed to authenticate users who were accessing the data. So what we can do, if I go ahead and log out, we can log in as the researcher. And we can see the researcher view now. So we see researchers have access to view items, but they cannot contribute or they cannot change settings. So if I was interested in going to the 538 dataset collection, I can click 538, and here I can view all the items. Here is some data set about college majors in the US, and I can view all the files up here. So these are all the files associated. So I can click on that, and then I am downloading that file right now. Similarly, if you were interested in having multiple users contribute to a site, that is where that collaborative function comes in the way, you can assign someone a contributor role. So if we log in as the contributor, we see it looks very similar to the researcher dashboard, but they can add items as well. So if I was interested in adding an item, I could just add, test item here. And I can say this is a test item subject, so on and so forth. I could fill this out, add the files I needed, and then add that. So now if we go to our public site and we go to recently added items, we see test item, and we see, boom, test item. And we know that this was contributed by our contributor. Very useful. Very useful. I'd like to touch on, also the extensible nature of this. Not only can you assign different users different permissions, there are even plugins that allow you to assign, admin privileges to specific users, and have them basically approve or reject submissions by contributors. So it just kind of goes back to touch on, how flexible Omeka is, how extensible the software is, so on and so forth. So that brings us to the end of the demo. Overall, I think Omeka Classic and Omeka.net are excellent tools for individuals and organizations who are looking to host, organize and share their digital content and collections. I would say the platform is, very flexible, extensible, and that allows it to meet a variety of needs from different end users, from small organizations to individuals, all the way up to large organizations with multiple sites and multiple contributors. The various hosting options also make it very simple for individuals or groups without robust technical support or the capabilities to, self-host their own Omeka site, to install and use the platform and, still be able to get their content out for their community to view. So if you have any questions about any of this, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. Thank you.